DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse, is the one-stop shop for all your footwear needs. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW has what you need, but more importantly, they have what you didn't even know you wanted. You never know what you'll find at DSW. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or DSW.com.
Our power is in our emotions. Our power is absolutely in our emotions. If we can learn to work with them instead of avoid them, instead of fight them, instead of make ourselves wrong for them, instead of make other people wrong for their own emotions, because that's what we usually do. If we can get right with our own emotions, we can take so much power back in our lives. You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 703. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here joining me. And if you didn't know, I have a new book coming out on December 9th, and it's called Live Like You Give a Damn, 25 Bold Moves to Get Honest, Face the Hard Stuff, and Show Up for Yourself. I can't wait for you to read this. It's kind of, I would call it a little bit of a part 2 for how to stop feeling like shit and 52 ways to live a kick-ass life. It is self-help basics, like the things really important to focus on. And it was one of those downloads that came to me, all 25 chapters, really. I remember even where I was sitting when the download came to write it. And I'm also hosting a workshop on December 18th. Make sure I'm telling you the right date. December 18th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's noon Pacific. Live Like You Give a Damn as the World Burns. That is the title of this workshop. December 18th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to talk about really 3 ways to stay grounded in a time like this when the world around us feels like it's truly falling apart. There are so many things to be horrified about and to fight for and to be worried about. And I would love to spend some time with you talking about kind of some basics. How do we bring it back to ourselves, but also still think about and honor our values, which a lot of our values matter right now in terms of what is happening around us. And it's complicated. It's really complicated. So I would love for you to join me live. And of course, there will be a recording. If you go to AndreaOwen.com/LLYGAD, that's the acronym for Live Like You Give a Damn. I didn't just make that up. AndreaOwen.com/LLYGAD. If you click sign up for bonuses, that gets you signed up for the workshop. Okay. So a more clear page is coming. But right now, as I'm recording this, that's where to go. AndreaOwen.com/LLYGAD. I would love, 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 love to see you there. Come and say hi. Come and learn a few things. Hang out with me for the afternoon. All right. So today I'm talking about emotional intelligence. And the title of this podcast episode is called The Ultimate in Emotional Intelligence. And it was something that I've been thinking about lately. And I realized I don't think I've done that many episodes on emotional intelligence. And so I'm going to kind of briefly go over it. Like, what is it? Because you know how I get about terms that are widely used on social media or even just like in the zeitgeist in general. And it's a vague term that I think a lot of people don't actually know what it means and what it looks like in real life. So then people kind of can feel overwhelmed and then they just kind of don't even want to know because they feel like they're behind already. So that's why I don't like when when these terms get thrown around and there isn't a lot of education on my part from me to you about what this actually means. So we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, and I'm going to talk about this one thing in regard to emotional intelligence that I feel is kind of the ultimate. When I say ultimate, I mean it's incredibly difficult to get to that place where you can do this, and also poignant in your growth journey. And so I want to first start by saying that emotional intelligence is a skill that we learn, not that we are born with. It is something that we have to practice, that we will probably mess up, and that we have to learn. And there's a man named Daniel Goleman who's written, I think, several books on emotional intelligence. He's kind of the go-to expert on it. And he breaks emotional intelligence down into 5 categories, and they are components rather, and they are self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, motivation, and social skills. And I'm going to pause for a second. One of the reasons that I bring this up on the podcast is I've been doing a lot of leadership coaching lately with executives, people who manage teams and are in all kinds of levels in different corporate environments. And interestingly, I end up talking about emotional intelligence, I think, with, I would say, about 90% of my clients to varying degrees. Okay. And this is for their professional development. And recently I had one client, and she was younger in her career, and we had a few minutes before we had to close up, and we were sort of done talking about what she had brought to the session. And I asked her if she had anything else that she wanted to say or ask. And she said, if you can look at a list of leadership qualities and leadership skills and pick one of them that you think is the most important for leaders to work on and master, which one would it be? And before she even got the question out, I already knew what the answer was going to be. And it's emotional intelligence, because for most of the other leadership skills, you have to have emotional intelligence. Unless you're talking about technical things, it's so many of them have to do with this. And so that's kind of why it came top of mind to me. And I think that you all know what self-awareness is. Self-awareness is when you are aware of your own stuff, when you're aware of your own edges, the places you get triggered, the places you get emotionally hooked, as I often say, mostly that you have at least a basic understanding of your own emotions. You can name them, when you're in them. That's kind of like basic explanation of it. And when we're talking about self-regulation, that is when you have learned to regulate your emotions. So you pause before reacting. Empathy is more about the way that you show up for someone else who's expressing something emotional that happened to them. So something where they have had an experience where it's clear that they are having big feelings about it, and you offer them your presence, you reflect back to them what it is that they're feeling. You can hold space for them. That's what we call it. That's the lingo. That's what empathy is. And then the motivation one is the one where I think that can get a little confusing for people. And so motivation is more about being guided by your own internal values and goals, and it's emotional maturity that will help you stay steady when things get really hard and uncomfortable. So, for example, this happens a lot in an uncomfortable conversation, an intense talk you're having with someone, or even an argument with a partner. We can use that as an example. So instead of trying to win or make sure that the other person knows you are right, you stay focused on understanding the other person, on understanding what the goal is of the conversation. Maybe you stay focused on understanding repair if it's maybe a conversation with a partner. All of that because your main motivation is either integrity, maybe if you're having this conversation at work, or leadership, or maybe your motivation is connection or the relationship. So another easy example is working on yourself. It doesn't even require another person. So when you are showing up over and over again for your personal growth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you've found out something difficult that you need to walk through, because your motivation is rooted in becoming your healthiest self, and it's not for anyone else. So that's what they mean by motivation in terms of emotional intelligence. And then the social skills part that Daniel Goleman talks about, this is kind of the how in within the relationship, whether it's, again, happening at work, this conversation, or at home within a partnership. The social skills part is about how you communicating clearly with kindness, and also sometimes with boundaries. It's how you resolve the conflict. It's also about reading emotional cues. And if you are unsure about something, asking for clarity. Okay, we're going to take a quick ad break. And when we get back, I think I'm going to go off for a little bit on why this is so important, like why it matters so much. Be right back. You know how the holidays sneak up and suddenly you're thinking, I need more chairs, cozy blankets, maybe a sparkle around here? Same, which is why I love Wayfair. Their Black Friday sale is already happening, up to 70% off everything home. And it's perfect time to get your space ready for guests, maybe cozy nights, and all of the chaos that comes with this season. So Dr. Fox bought this old house and we've been fixing it up. Somehow I've managed to become the creative director of the whole thing. And I've ordered so much from Wayfair. Wallpaper for the kitchen that he wasn't sure about, but now he loves it. And my entire home office is basically a Wayfair showroom. I love how easy it is to find things that actually match your vibe. They have fast shipping, tons of options, and you can definitely find some unique pieces. Wayfair is the go-to destination for everything home, no matter your style or budget. Don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday deals for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th.
Monday Sidekick, the AI agent that knows you and your business, thinks ahead and takes action. Ask it anything, seriously. Monday Sidekick, AI you'll love to use. Start a free trial today on monday.com.
This show is sponsored by MIDI Health. Let's be real. Midlife healthcare for women, historically trash. If you've been told, like I have, it's just aging or you'll be fine when you're not sleeping, you're sweating through your sheets, or feeling like a stranger in your own body, you are very much not alone. Even today, 75% of women seeking menopause or perimenopause care are left untreated. That's not okay. But there's good news. It's time for MIDI. MIDI is a women's telehealth clinic founded by experts in midlife health, and they actually listen. You get one-on-one, face-to-face care tailored to your unique needs. And they're the only women's telehealth brand covered by major insurance, making expert care accessible and affordable. From hormone therapy to weight loss support and lifestyle coaching, MIDI has your back. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized, insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve. Okay, I'm back. Here's why this is so important. Here's why I care so much about this, is because what I am finding to be true after 17 years doing this work, it is becoming more and more and more evident to me that our emotions matter so much in our own personal growth. And I don't know if it's possible to quote unquote get right with our own emotions until we can practice it with other people. I really don't know if you can come to certain healing places and learn things like self-trust instead of self-abandoning until you start to do this work in terms of emotional intelligence with other people. And the rub is that it takes a lot of trust in someone else to even practice this. It takes a lot to have this, kind of relationship in your life. And, a therapist can be great for this. Even a coach can be great for this. But our power is in our emotions. Our power is absolutely in our emotions. And if we can learn to work with them instead of avoid them, instead of fight them, instead of make ourselves wrong for them, instead of make other people wrong for their own emotions, because that's what we usually do. If we can get right with our own emotions, we can take so much power back in our lives. And so I want to kind of go through like the evolution of learning emotional intelligence and what this looks like. And yes, sometimes we back up. It's, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back type of thing. But normally we start out as someone who is like largely reactive. You take everything personally. You might assume that people have bad ill intent, that they're out to hurt you. You get defensive, things like that. That's pretty normal of how we sort of learn how to deal with emotional things. And then you get to the phase of self-regulation, where you might pause before reacting. That is a big deal. That is such a big deal. So like this is where sort of like general self-awareness starts in. You might hear a podcast about emotional intelligence. You read a book about it and you're like, oh, okay. Maybe I don't have to react immediately. Maybe it's not a reflex. Maybe I can pause and take a beat before I react. So that's the self-regulation phase. Then hopefully comes self-reflection. So you can pause and ask yourself, what's being triggered in me right now? What is important about what's going on to make me feel this way? Where am I feeling this in my body? That's interesting. What's going on in me? So it's like you start to reflect and ask yourself questions, not making yourself wrong, no judgment, just your self-coaching is what you start doing. From there, and by the way, this is like over time. This is not something that you're doing in like a weekend. Okay. I'm whipping through this framework. So first we are reactive, then comes the self-regulation, then the self-reflection, then empathy. I didn't learn this until I was in coach training when I was in my early 30s. Empathy, you start seeing others' behavior is about them and not you. So this is where emotional boundaries come in. And then you can hopefully start to be with other people's really uncomfortable emotions. Hopefully by then you can start to be with your own uncomfortable emotions instead of avoiding or numbing or running away. After empathy, or around that same time too, is where you start to learn about compassion and boundaries, that you can feel for other people and protect yourself at the same time. So, my beautiful people, this is what brings me to the ultimate in emotional intelligence, this thing I'm going to talk to you about right now. It's that true emotional intelligence is being able to understand someone else's behavior, because in the first phases of when you're learning your own emotional intelligence, you're learning about your own emotions. That is the best way to do it. You got to learn about your own emotions first. So then as you become well-versed in that, in your own emotions, being able to recognize them without judgment, being able to process them, even when it is the most uncomfortable thing, be able to accept them if they come back or they stay a while. Learning to accept them, even if you can't understand why you're feeling a certain way. Things like that. Then you are able to start to see other people's. And so true emotional intelligence is being able to understand someone else's behavior, even when it hurts or frustrates you, while still holding your own boundaries. And so what I mean by that is, when you're able to see someone else's behavior that you don't like, and you're able to understand why they're behaving that way, and you admit to yourself, oh, maybe it's not just because they're an asshole, or maybe it's not because they are trying to hurt me, or whatever reasons that we like to say. People hurt us or behave in ways that we don't like. When you're able to see things like, maybe they're behaving this way because I know that they get triggered around X, Y, or Z, or probably because they feel ashamed of what's happening in their life, so they're behaving that way. They may feel X, Y, and Z. A lot of times we don't know what the reason is. The real reason is that they're behaving a certain way. But I think in many, many instances, especially with family members, close friends, people like that we do have some kind of relationship or attachment to, we are able to see possible reasons why they're behaving a certain way. And we're able to have compassion for them, even if we don't necessarily articulate it. And we're just able to see them as like whole humans in all of their messiness and imperfections. This is an incredibly difficult place to be. As I'm talking about it, it may sound like, oh, what a blissful place that must be, to be able to let go. And I think yes and no. The no part is that a lot of times when we see that in other people, it touches our own feelings that are the same or similar. Like if we realize that someone that we know is behaving a certain way that we don't like, and then you realize that they're doing so because maybe they have a very similar experience to you with some pain, some emotional damage that you have, and you see the way that they are coping with certain situations might be directly related to that. It doesn't necessarily make you excuse any behavior, but it makes you understand why they are behaving that way. And it can be painful because it also might make you realize how difficult it will probably be for them to change if you want them to change. Even if you might think that it's better for them if they change. So when you realize and have more understanding and insight into them, that might make it really difficult for then you to accept like, oh, they're probably not going to change. And listen, I think all people deserve the grace that they can change. People do change their behavior, and sometimes they don't. And when you understand the reason people are behaving the way that they are, sometimes it can make you sink in a little bit deeper in understanding that they may not change. And there can be grief in that. And either way, whether you get to the place where you have more hope or less hope or the same amount of hope that they'll change, one thing that happens undeniably is like once you get to that place when you realize like, oh, this person is behaving this way because of X, that is usually the moment that you really realize the boundary that you might need to set. Because having compassion for someone does not necessarily mean that they get unlimited access to you for support. Or if you forgive someone for the way that they behaved, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to let them back into your life or, have things go back to the way that they were. If you understand someone's point of view, that does not necessarily mean that you agree with their behavior or you may not even agree with that point of view, but you understand it. So emotional intelligence will bring you the ability to hold a paradox of two things that seem like they are opposite. It lets you hold two difficult truths of I see and understand your pain, and I choose to not let it into my own life. I choose to not let it impact me anymore. I choose to not let it harm me. And so that's really the main message I wanted to bring to you today. Emotional intelligence and like high levels of emotional intelligence, which I think all of you listening are at the very least like halfway there at the most, like you do have high levels of emotional intelligence. It creates freedom. You don't have to be bogged down or ruled by other people's triggers. You certainly don't need to be ruled by your own triggers. You also don't need to be ruled by someone else's triggers or their emotional immaturity or their lack of emotional intelligence. And so I just want to end with the following. Maybe it's a challenge, maybe it's a little homework assignment, is that anytime, even just for today, try this. Anytime you notice a feeling, an uncomfortable one, try not to judge it. Try not to judge it. your growth happens in self-awareness first. That's always the first step. We got to name it to tame it. So today, try to just notice and not judge. All right? All right. I hope I see you on December 18th for my workshop. Live like you give a damn as the world burns. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.